I woke up one morning to find that the sun was late. It wasn't super late, just a few minutes. But I could feel its absence, a void where it should have been. Like the faint hum of a refrigerator that isn't plugged in, but you can still hear it. I sat in bed and looked at the clock, and the clock looked back at me, as clocks are one to do when they've become sentient and vaguely disappointed in your life choices. Late, it said, blinking its mechanical eyes. And that's when I realized, it wasn't just the sun that was late, time itself had become sluggish. My watch ticked twice and then fell asleep, leaning against the wall like a tired old man who had too many stories to tell but couldn't remember any of them. I got out of bed, the carpet feeling like wet sponge beneath my feet, which immediately began to grow, each step a small evolution. By the time I reached the door, I had toes the size of pineapples, and they made a sound that could only be described as thoughtful. I opened the door to find the hallway was no longer a hallway, but a desert. Sand stretched out before me in an endless wave of beige. In the distance I could see a camel wearing a bow tie. It tipped its hat as I passed. "Good morning," the camel said. I wasn't sure if he was being sarcastic or just polite. Polite the way one is when they know the day is going to be strange. I shrugged, because this appears to be my life now, and continued walking. The sun still hadn't shown up, though I did spot a small child in the shape of a cucumber standing in the middle of the sand. It was staring at me, as though it had all the answers to the universe, but it wasn't sharing. "Isn't it strange?" the child said, its voice like the sound of a teapot boiling in a library. "You're awake and yet the world's asleep. Isn't it strange?" I nodded because it felt like the right thing to do, even if I didn't understand. I had learned long ago that understanding was overrated. As I kept walking, the desert began to bend. Like the edges of a page someone was hastily scribbling on. It curled up into the sky and I found myself in a room made entirely of water, except the water was more like a million tiny blue paper clips jumbled together into some kind of organized chaos. At the center of the room there was a large mirror, but instead of my reflection there was a giraffe staring back at me. It had the face of an elderly woman, its eyes filled with both wisdom and resentment. "I've been waiting for you," it said, its voice like a broken piano. "Did you know time doesn't exist here?" "What do you mean?" I said. The giraffe tilted its head. "Oh, you know, time is the thing you chase, but it's a mirage really. All you've ever done is look for it. The question is what happens when you stop looking." And just like that, I wasn't in the room anymore. Instead I was back in bed, staring at the ceiling. The clock was still looking at me, its hands now moving in reverse, like an apology I never asked for. I realized the sun was no longer late. It had arrived precisely on time, but now everything else was out of sync. I smiled. At least it was a nice day for giraffes.